Mini enthusiasts, how you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're all well and I hope you're having a great day. The main content of today's video is going to be replacing the selector shaft seal on the automatic gearbox. I've gone into it in a bit more detail and I'm actually narrating my own video because I time-lapsed it, and I just wanted to give some more detail because when I looked on YouTube, I couldn't find another video of showing how it's replaced. It's relatively straightforward. It's the first time I've ever done it, and it's one of those sort of jobs that took me probably 15 minutes first time round. Next time round, I'll probably do it in about 3 minutes just because there's a technique to doing it. So I thought I'd share that. So we've got to that stage in the video actually where the engine is pretty much ready to go back in, or the engine bay's all done, the subframe's back in. I just need to get the gaskets done on the engine, the oil seals done that I want to replace, and get that built up and put it back in. What I will probably do is put the short engine back in without the head on, and then I'll probably put the head on once it's inside the car, just because this auto gearbox, when I took it out, it is physically much bigger than a manual, and it's quite heavy, and it's just difficult. It's more difficult than a manual to get in and out. So I'm probably going to make it easier for myself. It may not sound easier, but I'll probably put the head on once the engine and gearbox are back in the car. Now, I've ordered some bits. I missed the unboxing actually. I got carried away. So on the recommendation of Paul Jeffries, actually ordered some bits from MAR Motorsport, and I've got to say, fantastic service. The bits arrived pretty much next day. I ordered Friday and they were here Monday, which is phenomenal service. I've ordered a cam chain tensioner pad just because they're almost like a consumable item. They are made to wear. They're just a nylon pad, very sort of low tech, and the pad just sort of wears out, so I might as well do it while we're here. I've got a front pulley oil seal. I've got a front cover gasket, although I should have asked, I did want a genuine front cover gasket, front timing chain cover gasket, because they do have a habit of leaking, so I might not go with that. I might just keep it as a spare and order up a genuine one. I've got a set of followers, so I'll show you that in a moment. Actually, there's a couple of followers in there that are just a little bit pitted on the bottom, so just for peace of mind, again, while I'm here, it doesn't cost much for followers. I'm just going to replace them. Now, again, this is on the recommendation of Paul. So I've got a head gasket set. I bought a head gasket set from Mini Spares, and it's not their cheap economy one, but the gasket set itself's cheap anyway. It's only about 16 quid, I think, that come with the head gasket. Now, as you can see, this is like, it's copper one side, I think, and that looks like steel or stainless steel the other. And then there's like a gasket material in between. That is, I think, what the original gasket would have been. It would have been a copper gasket. But obviously gasket technology's moved on a bit, and when I spoke to Paul, he said you'd be better off with a Victor Rein's gasket. They're not expensive. I think it was 15 quid, but this is a composite style gasket, which is what you would see more on modern cars. And if you bought a BK paying BK 450 gasket for like a 1275 or a Turbo Day series, there'll be a composite gasket as well. So just, I think the material's better. So for the sake of 14, 15 quid, I'm going to go with Paul's recommendation and fit a Victor Rein's gasket. So let me just pull one of these followers out and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so that one is probably the worst one in there. There were two in there that show a bit of pitting, and it was number, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 3. So I can't work it out whether it's inlet or exhaust, but I don't know how well that will show on the camera, but there's just pitting on the face of it there. It's only on 2 of them out of the 8 followers, but I thought it's not heavy pitting, but again, followers are not expensive. I can't remember what they cost, let me have a look, but might as well do them while we're here. Wow, it's £8.95 for a set of followers. Yeah, what absolute no-brainer, just do them. So like I say, under the bonnet is pretty much ready for the engine to go back in now. I've done a few bits off camera. Obviously we've refitted the braking system, brake pipes. I've actually sort of partially bled through the brake pipes already and filled up with fluid. It's quite handy to do that early actually, because I filled it up with fluid and then I noticed one of the unions was leaking and I just not tightened it up. But with a nice clean floor, obviously it was really easy to see. There was a few drips on the floor. Yeah, everything else I think is ready for the engine and box to go back in. You'll laugh at this. I did spend a few minutes looking for the bonnet cable. I was like, what did I do with the bonnet cable? Where's it go through the bulkhead? Yeah, it's up here somewhere. And then I'm looking around thinking, where's the bonnet cable? I have been working on late minis for too long. Obviously, an early mini like this doesn't have a bonnet cable.
Hi all. It's a long time since I narrated a video like this, and I get lots of requests to give some more detail, so I thought I would do here. If you saw the link to the video and want to see the gear selector seal replacement, that will be towards the end of the video, so I'll make sure I put some titles or the timestamps down the bottom. At the moment you can see me replacing or removing the timing chain cover, and the reason I'm doing that is to replace the front pulley seal while we're here. So what I found on the engine is all the rubber seals, the rubber's gone really hard on them, almost brittle, so I need to try and replace all the rubber seals on the engine. So although it didn't appear to be leaking from the front cover, it's a good time to do it anyway, because this is a much more difficult job once the engine's back in the car, and it's not very expensive for a front cover gasket and front pulley seal. So we're going to do that while we're here. At the moment I'm just cleaning up the gasket face, and I've decided to remove that tensioner as well, and I'll replace the tensioner pad. It probably doesn't need replacing again, but they are literally only £5 or £6 I think for the tensioner pad, so we might as well do it while we're here. Next I turn my attention to the valve chest plates. As you can see, this is a 998cc engine, so it still has valve chest plate covers. Earlier 1275s had them, but later 1275 A+ engines didn't have valve chest covers on the back, but they were definitely leaking on this. There was a bit of oil seepage down the back, so we'll replace the gaskets. And at the moment I'm just pulling the followers out one by one just to have a look and inspect them. And I did actually find on two of the followers there was a very slight bit of pitting, so I think I'm just going to put a new set of followers in it anyway, just while we're here. It seems sensible to do, and again they're not very expensive, so we may as well do them. I've also just cleaned up the fuel pump gasket facing there, and now I'm removing the near side front drive shaft oil seal, again just because it's a rubber seal and it had gone very hard. I'll show that in a later video, but literally when you press the rubber it would crack. It had gone really brittle and hard. So I am going to replace both drive shaft seals, but I spoke to my friend Paul Jeffries, who spoke to someone who's a real expert with gearboxes, manual and autos, and the offside seal you have to remove the diff casing to replace it. That near side seal is quite straightforward, you just pry it out and put a new one in. As you can see, now we're moving on to the gear selector seal, which did need replacing because it was leaking. And I've never done a gear selector seal on an automatic before, so I didn't really know what to expect. It looked pretty straightforward, so obviously we've already got the engine out, which you might not if you were doing this. And the first bit is just to remove the gear selector cover, which is 2 half-inch bolts, and then you can remove the cable, which will either be clipped or bolted. And then there's this quadrant that fits down the bottom, which just changes the direction of movement from the cable to the selector rod, which goes inside the gearbox. And that rod has a knuckle on the end of it, and I was struggling to get that knuckle off, and it caused me quite a few problems, which you'll see in a moment. And yeah, it was just a bit of a battle. I tried various things for how to get it out. It had a 7/16 nut on the end of it with a spring washer, and the knuckle would move left and right on the shaft, but it just wouldn't come off. I'm not sure whether you can use a puller or something like that, and I wasn't sure to begin with whether there was some sort of detent holding it on, but I later found out there wasn't. And I think maybe what's happened is where the gear selector nut gets tightened, it just burrs over the end a little bit, and then that knuckle catches on the thread when you're trying to remove it. You can see me using a hammer and just tapping here, and it's hard to see on the time lapse, but those are gentle taps. I was being very, very careful. Last thing I wanted to do was bend the selector shaft or something like that. And it was just trying to find the right method for getting it off. It's one of those jobs that you do it once and you learn how to do it, and it's much, much quicker the next time. So the hardest bit was trying to stop the shaft moving while trying to push the shaft or press the shaft through the knuckle which it was stuck on. So various different methods tried. In the end, the one that will work, which I'll show in a moment, was I've got a crow's foot socket, and a crow's foot socket is like a horseshoe shaped, so it allows you to, or it allowed me to slot it up around the shaft, but it would hold the knuckle, which then allowed me to use a punch and basically just tap the shaft through the knuckle. We'll show that in a minute. I will just apologise now because this video cuts off a little bit early at the end. So there's a crow's foot you can see there. That now fits up around the shaft, but obviously stops the knuckle moving back any further. And then I was just able to use a punch and just tap the shaft through the knuckle, and that got it separated. Like I say, I do apologise, this video cut short at the end. I had a corrupted file, but we get to the point of replacing the seal, and then reassembly is just in reverse of what we've done, taking it apart. So now that gets our knuckle off. That's it in my left hand there, and like I say, I'm not sure whether they all stick on like that, but it certainly caused a few problems for me. I think looking on the Mini Autos forum, some other people have mentioned it there. So the next job, I've just put the 7/16 nut back on just to make sure I hadn't damaged the thread, which I hadn't done, and it allowed me to pull the shaft back out again. And now it's simply a case of hooking out the oil seal, which again you have to do quite carefully. But if you've got a little pick like this, either a straight pick or one with a hook on the end, you can just tap it up on the inside of the oil seal, and then it's not difficult to get out. You can do it by hand, just pull the oil seal out. Now obviously really important, once you've got it out, just make sure that's all nice and clean inside there. So I use my magic spray, bit of brake cleaner, make sure it's nice and clean. And then I actually, before refitting the seal, you don't want to refit it dry, although I'm sure it'll soon get covered in oil from the inside. Either smear a bit of oil around the outside, or I used just a little bit of rubber grease, because this is not going to be going back or being refilled with oil for quite a while yet. So very, very slight smear of rubber grease around the outside. seal back on over the shaft, and then again it's a case of finding what works for you. So finding a socket or something like that which goes over the shaft but fits nicely on the oil seal, so you can just push it in. It should push mostly in by hand, but I just gave it a few taps just to make 100% sure. I think the size of the socket I used was 13mm in the end, so the outside of the 13mm socket was about the same width as the selector oil seal. So yeah, just a few taps there. I did find, so the oil seal, when you look at it, it sits inside that gearbox case, and it's not that easy to get to. It's not as simple as it is on a manual gearbox. So yeah, it does take a little bit more ingenuity to get it out cleanly. So it is doable. Hopefully this helps you do it, but yeah, just don't lose your patience, take your time. Appreciate, obviously it's a little bit harder to do on your back.